Hey, what's up guys? Simplexity here. I'm going to be doing some PvP guides for Mists of Pandaria. This is my first video since the new expansion hit. So what I'm going to be covering is I'm going to be covering Destruction PvP and I'm going to be covering Demonology PvP. I'm not going to really touch Affliction just because it's not really in a good state right now. It's probably our weakest spec. So yeah, I'm just going to be covering Destruction Demonology for the time being. So I'm going to be splitting these guides and overviews up into 3 different videos for each spec. The first video is going to be talents. The second video is going to be macros, glyphs, stat priorities, stuff like that. And the third video is going to be kind of like your rotation, your burst, your survival, basically how to play the spec. So look out for those. This video is going to be on destruction talents. So I'm going to further, break that down on how you should spec your talents for random battlegrounds, rated BGs, and arenas. So let's go over random battlegrounds first, how you should do it. Keep in mind all this is just, my opinion. These talents were made to be controversial, and you can spec how and you can play how you want to play, but this is just the way I found has been the best results, really giving me the best results. So this first tier is our healing tier. Dark Regeneration is the winner for pretty much any time you're doing PvP, just because it gives you it gives you a good healing, it gives you a good survival cooldown pretty much. It restores 30% of your health, and it increases all the healing that you receive from 25 by 25% by the time this cooldown's up. This stacks with things like Hellstone. This stacks with things like Ember Tap, the Grimoire of Sacrifice Hot, Cauterized Master if you're using the Imp, and Mortal Coil. This is why, I'll talk about this later too, having a high health pool, increasing your health, is really good for destruction especially. Okay, so the second tier is about our CC. You can either choose Howl, Mortal Coil, which is the Death Coil on 45-second cooldown, heals you for 15% of your max health, and Shadowfury. Shadowfury is the AoE stun. It got a higher cooldown though. So for random BGs, I like going with Mortal Coil for survival. You can also go with Shadowfury though. Either of these picks are viable. You can choose. So I think I don't know. Mortal Coil is better if you need more survival. Shadowfury is gonna give you more opportunities to get burst off, just because it has a 15-second lower cooldown. So yeah, you can do what you. If you need more survival, you can take Coil. If you want more damage, you can take Shadowfury. This next tier is about our survival. Gives us some defensive cooldown options. I take either Soul Link or Dark Bargain for random BGs. I like Soul Link, and I'll tell you why when we go over a later tier. So yeah, let's cover that later. We'll cover Dark Bargain a little bit later too, but just know that this is a viable. If you're a more cooldown style player, Dark Bargain is definitely a good choice. So the 60 tier is kind of about sacrificing your health for some sort of benefit. For Blood Fear, you get an instant fear, but it has a drawback of putting your fear on a 10-second cooldown. Burning Rush drains your health, but you can move 50% faster. This really isn't good in any sort of PvP. Unbound Will is kind of like a PvP trinket, but it has a hefty health cost at 20% of your maximum health. So that's the only thing. Also, Unbound Will can get rid of things like magic debuffs like Combustion, Frostbomb, Deep Freeze, stuff like that. Anything, really, as well as serving as a trinket. So keep that in mind. For random BGs, I actually really like Unbound Will. Just because you don't always get dispelled, you sit more CC generally than you want to. So this doesn't share cooldown with your PvP trinket, so I like Unbound Will for random BGs. Blood Fear is also a viable option, and it can actually set up an easier way to get Chaos Bolts off. But Unbound Will, just I don't like sitting CC, so I take Unbound Will for random BGs. This next tier is our pet tier. I like going petless for destruction, just because it gives 25% more damage to pretty much all of your abilities. Destruction's all about the burst. If you can increase that burst in any way possible, definitely take it. So that's why I like Grimoire of Sacrifice. Also, about Soul Link. So Soul Link says you have a pet, to share damage and health and healing with. If you don't have that pet and take this talent, what it does is it increases your health by 20%. You'll see my health is at almost 450,000. Why is that important? Because a lot of our abilities, a lot of our defensive abilities stack with our maximum health. Dark Regeneration restores 30% of your maximum health. Mortal Coil restores 15% of your maximum health. Even this puts a hot on you for 2% of your maximum health. Ember Tap restores almost a quarter of your health. That's a destruction healing ability to use if you use an Ember. If you use an Imp, Cauterize Master, that'll restore 12% of your health. You can really see, like, if you stack your health up, you can have insane health just because of this talent. Look, I have 671,000 health. And I'll show you how much Ember Tap will heal me for. 168,000 just from Ember Tap. If I had like a mastery buff or something, that'd be even more. So that's pretty significant. So that's why I like Grimoire of Sacrifice with Soul Link. You can just do insane self-healing just because of that. Oh yeah, and I forgot, Hellstone. 40% of your maximum health if you glyph it. So this last tier for random BGs, I like Mannoroth's Fury. It makes your Rain of Fire area huge. And Rain of Fire is really important for Destro. It stuns people, and in the next patch it'll generate embers for you. So it's really good for getting stealth classes out, keeping people off flags, and just damage, really. You can do a few destruction specific things too with Rain of Fire to generate embers. I'll show you that in a later video. So that's why I like Mannoroth's Fury and random BGs. So for rated BGs, how would we switch it up? Well, you're going to keep your healing cooldown. This 30 tier, you have a bit of a choice here. Coil isn't really good because you fight a lot of, you're in a lot of group fights in rated BGs, so you want group effects. So a group stun with Shadowfury or a group fear with Howl are your choices. I like Howl just because sometimes in rated BGs, you have teammates that stun. This will cause diminishing returns with your teammate stuns. So that's why I like Howl. For the survival tier, you can either go with Soul Link or Dark Bargain. Dark Bargain's a little better if you think your survival is lacking a little bit. If you're afraid to get switched to and you don't have a cooldown up, that's where Dark Bargain helps. Soul Link won't always save you. Having a big health pool won't always save you. So you can choose either Soul Link or Dark Bargain. The reason why you don't take Sacrificial Pact, by the way, with Sacrifice is because it'll sacrifice your own health to put a shield on you. So that's why you should never really choose Sacrificial Pact and Sacrifice together. This next tier, you can either choose Unbound Will to get our CCs or Blood Fear for RBGs. I like Blood Fear just because it's really good to get instant CC on, say, like a hard swap or something. And the healers that I play with are generally pretty good at dispelling me out of CC, so I don't feel I need Unbound Will in RBGs. The pet tier, I stick with the Sacrifice for the damage bonus again, and the health if you have Soul Link, so that's why I like that. RBGs is a lot about getting burst kills and stuff like that, kills in like 3 second windows, so if you can improve your burst, all the better. And the same reason for Mannoroth's Fury for the last tier. Keeps people off flags, gets stealthies out, stuff like that. Really good. Ember Generation, really good. So, arenas, what do we change? You keep the Dark Regeneration for the cooldown. here's where you have a choice. You take Mortal Coil or you can take Shadowfury. I don't really like Howl of Terror. I'll explain why a little bit later for arenas. But Mortal Coil or Shadowfury, what this depends on, what you're going to do, is basically if your teammates have an abundance of stuns or not. If they do have stuns, you don't really need extra stuns with Shadowfury. Your teammates can cover that. So sometimes extending the CC chain with Mortal Coil is going to be a lot better. If your teammates don't have stuns, say you're playing with like a Shadow Priest or something like that, that's where Shadowfury is going to be really good. So yeah, it really depends what you're playing with. By default, if your teammates don't have stuns, or if you're just choosing, I think Shadowfury is better just because of the lower cooldown. Okay, so for this survival tier, this is where you can switch it up too. Dark Bargain is really good if you're facing a burst comp, say like a Hunter Warrior team or something like that in Arena. And it seems like a lot of teams are playing bursty comps, so I just choose Dark Bargain by default mostly when I'm doing arenas. Soul Link's a little better if you aren't going to get focused that often, if it's not a burst comp, if it's going to be a longer game. That's where the bigger health pool and more passive healing is going to come in favor with Soul Link. So it's a choice. For this tier, for the 60 tier, I really like Blood Fear for Arena. The way I see it is the less I'm fake casting, the less, and the easier I can get fears off on the healer especially, who might be like, humping a pillar or whatever, the more time I have to do damage. If I have to waste time fake casting or, sacrificing my position just to get a fear off, that cuts into my damage and stuff like that. Unbound Will, I see a lot of people taking that. I don't know. I've played about 100 games so far, and I don't feel like I've ever played a game where I was like, damn, I wish I had Unbound Will over Blood Fear. So yeah, it is a toss-up. It's a matter of taste. Blood Fear is that's my preference. This tier again, I go for the sacrifice for the burst. Don't have to worry about keeping pets alive too. It's really nice. For this last tier, here's where you can switch it up a little bit for the first time as Destro. Again, Mannoroth's Fury is going to be really good if you're facing a team that can stealth, has any stealth members. Also, if you just want the big Rain of Fire stun. Archimonde's Vengeance is a very viable choice if you're facing a burst team. Of course, it's not going to do anything if they don't go on you, but if they do, you can, cause some significant backlash to them too. So that's where Archimonde's Vengeance comes in Arena. Okay, so that's the end of this video. Hope I kept it as short as I could. In the next video, we're going to go over stat priorities. We're going to go over destruction-specific misappend area macros. We're going to go over like reforging and glyphing and gemming and enchanting, all that stuff. So stay tuned, guys.